Good morning and roll tide, everybody. Alabama falls short on the road at Purdue last night. Crimson Tide losers at a tally of 87-78. What went wrong for Alabama? We're going to talk about that and this team that hasn't quite gelled, and we're going to break that down for you and look ahead to the upcoming game on Wednesday night. This is Catfish Courtside. Let's get it going. What's happening, everybody? Good morning as you get ready for football this afternoon. This is Catfish Courtside. I'm Chad Anderson. Bama and Purdue last night. We knew it was the first big test of the young season for the Tide. It was the first of a very difficult stretch for Alabama as they play multiple games away from Coleman Coliseum until Creighton comes to town on December the 14th. But last night, hostile environment. Also, you got to remember this. Alabama, even though losers last night, Final Four team from last year. This Alabama team and Alabama basketball in general, obviously they've developed more of a target, more of a bullseye on their back whenever they go on the road. They've been the SEC champion multiple times under Nate Oates. They've been the overall number 1 seed under Nate Oates. This is the first season where they're going places as last year's Final Four participant. And remember, Purdue was actually in the championship game, and this team, Purdue, they just keep growing big guys. I mean, there were a couple of more in there last night. They weren't Zach Edey, but they were still very effective and had a huge impact on the contest. But this Alabama team and Alabama in general, they're not used to being the number 2 team in America going on the road to a hostile environment. Yes, I know it's probably has happened once here, once there. But again, we talked about the expectations of this season, and we haven't seen where teams are taking on Alabama and they're a number 1, number 2, number 3, top 10 consistently. And in the SEC, yes, and you bounce up and down in the rankings across, the course of the year. But I'm talking non-conference play this early in the season. Those years under Oates previously, Alabama worked their way in there. This is the highest preseason ranking we've ever seen for the Crimson Tide. So Alabama doing some things, that getting out of their comfort zone, playing on the road, playing as number 2, and not doing the neutral court stuff. They do have some neutral site games coming up. They played Purdue last year up in Toronto, but going to Houston, going to Purdue, going to Creighton, those are the things that, again, just recently started or are just starting this year. And having that big bullseye, especially with the preseason hype, it's a little bit different mentally. And you could see that early on for Alabama. Crimson Tide just didn't get settled in very quick. The 3 ball wasn't there early on. I think Bama was 0 for their first 7, 1 for their first 10 before Phylon started hitting some. And you look at the first half, Alabama struggled, actually had the lead with under a minute to go for the first time in the game. And Purdue hits a 3 right at the horn to take a 2-point lead going into the break. But I looked at my son and I said, hey, Alabama's in a perfect spot. They haven't played well, or they haven't played to Alabama's ability, yet they're only down 2 on the road at Purdue, number 13 team in the country. Second half, 3 ball started to drop. Phylon took over. Reitzel hit some shots. Purdue got in a little bit of foul trouble. And when Alabama grabbed that lead, they had a 6-point lead, 65-59 at around the 10-11 minute mark to go in the game. It was started to feel like, okay, this team could pull away here because they had not hit the 3. They were struggling with that. And then it started to fall. They hit 5 out of 6 in one stretch. But all the credit to Purdue. They shot lights out. 60% approximately, I believe it was, in the second half, and they finished the game. From that point forward, when Alabama had a 6-point lead, Purdue went on a 13-0 run and then finished the game on a 28-13 run to beat the Crimson Tide 87-78. So just some notes from last night. Purdue, like I said, shooting lights out. Sears was a presence in that he he caused problems on the court. He was able to drive the lane. He was able to do some of his crazy scoop shots. He was able to create, drive, and kick. But he didn't hit some of his shots. It's not that they were bad shots. They just didn't go down. They rattled out. They hit the back iron. It popped around 2 or 3 times off the rim and the glass and just wouldn't go. So Sears just had one of those nights where, just like anything, it wasn't a bad performance because he created an impact, but the shots just didn't fall. And Purdue held him last night to just 13 points for the evening. Phylon was unbelievable. To think that a freshman, and he was the number 4 point guard in his recruiting class, I believe it was, but Phylon comes in and just does amazing things on the floor. He's able to dish. He found Reitzel wide open at one point in the second half, which was a great touch pass where Alabama really needed a basket. He hit some big threes. He was just a force on the court. And the great thing with him, he's such a good point guard, such a good ball carrier, taking care of the ball, dribbling the basketball, finding open people. But he drives into the lane, and he can either finish or kick. He can create. I mean, he's really going to be just better and better and better. To me, he is the single guy, maybe Amori. I'm torn on both of those guys, but Phylon gives a whole new element to where the focus won't solely be on Sears. So if you look at it, you got Aiden Holloway, you've got Reitzel, but everybody focuses on Sears and the ball handling, but Phylon can complement that. And so as the season progresses, as the chemistry develops, that's going to be something to watch because he proved last night as a freshman going on the road in such a hostile environment to be able to put up those kinds of numbers and not let the crowd bother you. That was something. Speaking of the chemistry, it's still just not quite there. You saw a couple of times maybe errant passes or not on the same page or switching off defenders, things like that. That will come. Those are simple things. It's not a talent issue. It's not an attitude issue. That's just more playing together. And so that will come. I'm not worried about that. Nate Oates has over and over again proved how much better his teams get over the course of the year. There was only that one year where they really started to fade down the stretch, and that was when Alabama lost to Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament in the first round, went to the NCAA tournament in San Diego, lost to Notre Dame. I think Bama was a 6th seed in that one, lost to Notre Dame in the first round. That was the only team that really started to, like I said, retract as the season went on. But every other year, you can tell Nate Oates' teams get better. And Nate Oates said last night, I love the comment. I love the attitude. I love the confidence. He says, look, you can go out, play a bunch of home games, win a bunch of games, and have a great record, and just kind of get out there in the front and make it an easy path for yourself. But that doesn't help you in February and March and hopefully April. And he talked about how these are the games that truly tell them where they are. Where are we? On the barometer, where are we sitting right now? How much better do we need to be? What do we need to work on? What do we need to practice on? All those things are so crucial. And I think if you look back at last year, Alabama started the year 6-4. Their loss to Purdue in the middle of December in Toronto was their 4th loss of the season. And they were nearing the 500 mark. So Bama this year, 3-1, but in basketball, it's so much different. You really have to throw records out. When the tournament committee puts the bracket together at the end of the year, they don't go, oh, well, your record is 27-5 and your record is 24-8. Well, 27-5 is going to be seeded higher. That's not always the case in college basketball. They reward these types of games. And I promise you, these games right here are what make a team tough and mentally ready for the stretch run in March. So not worried at all about last night. I was actually impressed because of how poorly they shot the ball from 3 in the first half to then stay in the game, have a 6-point lead before Purdue they made everything from Indianapolis to South Bend to Evansville. They were hitting shots from all over the place. The length, the last thing before we go to the box score, the length on this team is unbelievable. if you watch the full game, if not, go back and watch when they rebound, when they help on the weak side, when they are in the paint, when they're boxing out, when they're going up for blocks. It's insane how long Alabama is. From Reed to Amori to Nelson to I know I'm missing others, but just off the top of my head without looking, it's unbelievable what Bama's able to do defensively and how getting into the paint against the Tide is so tough and so difficult. Credit to Purdue, honestly, with some of the shots they were making interior and some of the drives that they made. And they caused problems because they hit some outside shots, which created some of those lanes. But the length, and you can tell it's a noticeable difference from last year because Alabama only had Nick Pringle. Charles Bediako had gone to the NBA draft. He didn't get drafted, gone to play ball elsewhere professionally. And go back to 2 years ago when Alabama was the overall number 1 seed, and you had so much more length and depth with Bediako and with Clowney. And Pringle was on that team as well. But you had all that. The one guy that I'm looking for to step up a little bit, who has struggled, and it's still early in the season. We're only 4 games in. But I think if the fans are looking at one player who hasn't lived up to obviously the expectation and the potential, would be Jaron Stevenson, because he's another guy. Tons of length, can shoot it from the outside, but he's off to a slow start right now. Was 0 for 4 last night, didn't have any points. So we'll see what happens with Stevenson. Hopefully he can get it going because he was a big part of the team going down the stretch in last year's Final Four run. All right, let's take a look at the box score. We'll get this pulled up. Again, 87-78 was the final. Crimson Tide shot 44% from the field. Purdue just shy of 50% overall. I mentioned that 60% in the second half. Alabama, they tidied it up a little bit, 31% from beyond the arc. But here's a huge difference. Purdue made the same number of threes. They had 9 in the contest last night. Alabama, 9 of 29. Purdue, though, 9 of 16. Much more efficient from beyond the arc, 56% from three-point range. Purdue had a lot more free throws. A lot of those came in the second half, and they actually helped Alabama, only shot 64%. Bama only missed 2 free throws all night long, so nice job by the Tide at the charity stripe. Rebounding was even, 37-35 in favor of the Crimson Tide. Turnovers last night, Alabama only had 8, but they didn't cause any either. Purdue did a nice job of taking care of the basketball. They only had 3 giveaways on the evening. Bama, a few more fouls, 22-17. And looking at the individual numbers for the Crimson Tide, it was Philon leading the way, 18 points. Mark Sears had 15. I think I said 13 earlier, so it was 15 for the final total. Grant Nelson with 12, and Latrell Reitzel had 11 points on the night for the Crimson Tide, 9 of those coming from behind the arc. He and Philon each made 3 threes in yesterday's matchup. Defensively, though, rebounds, Grant Nelson led the way there with 11. Amori right behind him at 7. And then Amori, though, this is the presence. He had 4 blocks in the game last night. Nelson and Diabate each had 1 as well. So overall, Purdue, again, just shot the ball better than the Crimson Tide. Bama turned it over a little bit more, didn't create turnovers, and give credit to Purdue. They were led by Kaufman-Wren, big guy down low, wreaked havoc on the Tide last night, 26 points, all of those coming interior, other than 1 free throw made. And then they had Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, each had 17, and then CJ Cox had 11 points last night as well. On deck for Alabama is Illinois. Crimson Tide will play in Birmingham, Legacy Arena, against the Illini. Illini not ranked this year, not the normal preseason hype that you a lot of times see with that team out of the Big Ten, but they are a basketball school. I know Brett Bielema has done a nice job with the football program, but Illinois is a basketball school, and they'll be ready. They're always a solid team, always a formidable opponent. It's not going to be a cakewalk or anything like that, and there'll be a tune-up before Alabama heads out west and plays Houston and Rutgers out in Las Vegas. So looking forward to Alabama getting back on the winning track and hopefully get to 4-1 on Wednesday night. We'll have a Catfish Courtside episode dropping for you on Thursday to recap that one. All right, mortgage-wise, tell you about this. You can reach out to me. That's my cell phone number, my email, my website. I answer everything. I don't pass it off. I'm the one you actually talk to. 256-509-8200, whether it's purchasing a home, refinancing a home, getting a home equity line of credit. If you follow me on social media there at Mortgage Dad Chad, I posted yesterday about how the country is in $1.17 trillion of credit card debt. So a lot of times you may not think that the best way to escape is through some home equity, but most likely it is. And I can tell you, we've been helping families do that and saving $500, $800, and $1,300 per month with their refinance. So if you want, again, don't be embarrassed by it. Give me a call, shoot me a text. If you want to talk some ball, do that as well. And, we'll make sure we try to put you in the best overall financial situation that we possibly can. So thank you to those who have reached out. You guys have been fantastic and truly appreciate you letting me work with you. So, all right, that's it for Catfish Courtside. Enjoy the football game this afternoon, and we'll be back next week with more basketball content. Of course, daily football is going to be here on the channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the little bell so that you know when we drop our next video. Have a great one. Roll Tide.